Well, first we went down to Mission, Texas, and they said, "You want to fly this P-40?" And I said, "You better do." So we took the P-40 off, and we flew it around there for 10 hours, and we had a lot of fun with it. And it was the only airplane that I ever flew that you could get in it, and you could start doing rolls in it, and the engine wouldn't stop because it had an injection engine in it, just like our cars have injection engines nowadays.
Cool.
Yeah, and anyhow, I was really happy with that airplane, and then they said, "Okay, we're going to send you down to Matagorda Island, and we're going to run you through gunnery training." And so we were flying AT-6s. This was called the Texan, and it was a nice little airplane. It had a machine gun in the right wing and a machine gun in the cowling that fired through the propeller. And it had an intermitter in there so you wouldn't shoot your propeller off. And the only time that bullets would go through it was whenever the propeller was out of the way. And this intermitter took care of that as off of the timing gear. Anyhow, we'd take these in, and we'd fly, we'd shoot at sleeves. One guy would tow a big sleeve with a pipe on the front of it, and we'd shoot at it with colored bullets. And you'd have all your bullets would have dipped in a different color. And so you'd shoot the sleeve, and he'd turn around and come back the other way, and you had to do sleeve flying yourself. And each time it'd come by, well, you'd shoot at the sleeve, and when you got through, well, they dropped the sleeve, and you'd count how many bullet holes in it. And whenever it got through, I got so hot at it that I put 38 bullets in there out of 50.
Hey, all right.
I mean, I was blowing that thing out of the sky. That was the last time I ever shot a gun. So from then on, I was strictly in cargo planes flying for paratroopers and towing gliders and bringing in food and supplies to the guys on the islands. And, I was in the South Pacific. I was right on the, well, you might say on the equator. We was about 10 miles south of the equator, hotter than hell. Every bug in the world's chewing on you. We had to sleep in under mosquito netting, and we moved in after they captured the island, and the first one we moved in on was New Guinea, and we pushed the Japanese on the interior, and they'd come into our area at night and steal our food, and they were out of ammunition, and so, but they still had their bayonets, and they'd sneak into our tents at night, and they cut two of our pilots' throats, and we buried them up there on the hill. We buried them in mattress covers. We didn't have anything else to bury them in. Yeah, at night you'd sleep with your 45 in your hand, and a bug bomb in one hand, 45 in the other hand, and then whenever you had at night, you had the day officer would go around to each tent and say, "Okay, you're flying in the morning," and all he carried was a 45, and half the time he's scared to go in the tent because he's afraid someone's going to shoot him. But this was his job to get the flight crews out for the next day. And after we left New Guinea, we moved down to a town called Mortai. It was an island, not a town, and we stayed there for a few weeks or months. And it was a jungle town, just like the other one was, and we took over their runway, and we was living there, and we moved on down to the next island, and it was called Borneo.
Yeah.
We went into Leyte Gulf, and they had dug a runway out there and put some of the steel matting down on it. At the very end of the runway was a big pile of dirt where they shoved it up there, and all these aircraft carriers, we lost an aircraft carrier there, and all the aircraft carrier planes had to land somewhere, so they landed on this thing and ran off into the dirt and so forth, and a lot of them would break a landing gear or something or other, but they had to do something because their carrier was gone. Yeah, we landed many times at Okinawa, but the island we landed at Okinawa wasn't Okinawa. It was a little island off the coast of Okinawa called Ieshima, Ieshema, and it had 4 runways on it. And one of the runways was for our C-46s. The second runway was for P-38s. And the third runway was for PB-4Y Mark II naval bombers, aircraft patrol bombers. and the last one was for P-47s. Now then, this is where Earl Rodman was flying the P-47s, Earl Craig was flying the P-47s, Scott Kelly was flying the P-47. The whole town of Odessa and Texas just moved out there on this one little island.
So did you get to visit with them at all while you were over there?
Yes, Well, we started checking to find out who was where and what was going on, and the whole purpose of this was we were getting ready to invade Japan. And they told us, they said, here's what you're going to do for us. You're going to fly your C-46 in there, and you're going to tow 2 gliders, and each glider is going to be full of paratroopers and or a howitzer gun. And then you're going to have the back end of your airplane full of 35 paratroopers, and you're going to come in at 1,250 feet off of the coast of Japan. And whenever you get to this airport that we're going to take, you're going to drop your gliders and your paratroopers on this airport, and they're going to take that airport. And if they take it successfully, without you getting shot down, you're going to land on this airport. But he said, very likely you'll get shot down before you get there. And the reason why we had to go in at 1,250 feet was because the paratroopers...
Very low, isn't it?
Yeah, the paratroopers wanted to be as close to the ground as they could be, so have a minimum amount of time afloat to be shot at. They told us this. They said the casualties on this invasion is going to be about about 1.2 million Americans. I didn't say Americans, allied. But we were the only Americans. I mean, we were the only ones there. Yeah. The Aussies were all gone. The English were all gone. There wasn't anyone else but us. I had a brother over there.
Did you? Older or younger brother?
He was a Navy brother.
Okay.
He was an ensign JG. No, he wasn't. He was a lieutenant JG.
What's JG, by the way?
He was flying B-24, and they called it a PB-4Y Mark II. And what they had done is they had taken the discs off of the back end of it. Excuse me a minute. And put a tail gunner on it. He had a crew of 11 men. And I found out he was on the island. So I got a Jeep, went over and started at this place and went over there, and I walked into this place. Navy is very strict with their personnel. I can't think of the word. Anyhow, the enlisted men and the officers didn't commingle. And so they said, you have signs all over the place, officer country, officer country. So I went into the officer country there, and I was an officer, and so they're supposed to give you officer courtesy, and I said, I'm looking for W.C. Mathews, and he said, he's down there in tent number so-and-so. And I went into tent number so-and-so, and they said, you're looking for who? And I said, W.C. Mathews, and they said, well, he's been missing for 2 weeks now. Did you come to pick up his clothing? It was quite a shock.
Wow.
Quite a shock. Now, we were on the little island off of Okinawa called Iishima.
Yeah.
And he had his plane on that island too. And he had called in on a radio call, and he says, I'm making approach on a ship here in the China Sea. And this ship has no flag. Any ship that had no flag was considered a Japanese ship. And so they made their first pass at it, and the ship made a complete U-turn, and it missed the target. And so then the next transmission said, we're going to make our second run on this ship and drop another bomb. And that was the last transmission that we ever received from them